Here's how not to light the Batman. This is how I would typically light one of my YouTube videos, and it's nice and bright because I want it to be welcoming, and I also want you to see what's behind me just so you've got something to look at and it keeps it a bit more interesting. But I guess the golden rule is make sure to light for the mood of the scene or the character. And when it comes to Batman, it needs to be dark, almost like a horror film. You don't want it to be nice and bright because that takes away the edge of what the Batman is. So in this video I'm going to show you how I got shots that look like this and this, so that when it comes to filming your next project, you'll have some tips to make it look more movie-like. So I couldn't do a video about Batman without including a prop, so I bought this. It's massive, and I've got a small head. It's gonna look ridiculous. Oh, strong. Oh, it smells like paint. You know when you walk into Halfords and all you can smell is bike tyres? That. Here we go. Yep. One size fits all, they said. Right, well, this ain't gonna work. Look more like Catwoman. So besides the Batman mask, I'm going to talk a little bit about the gear that I used to get these shots. I just want to say a massive thanks to Per Gear to begin with, who very kindly sent me the lights for this video. So we've got the Aputure Amaran P60C and P60X. So there's a bi-colour version, so you can go from cool light to warm light. But then we've also got an RGB version, which is extremely helpful for getting those different colours that you might see in this film. So super handy lights, and they've also very kindly sent this mini tube light, and that's coming super handy for this shoot as well. There'll be a link to those down in the description. Camera wise, I'm using my trusty Lumix S5. I've spoke about this on the channel recently. Lens choices, I used the Lumix S range 85mm prime and 50mm prime. I thought I was probably going to use the 50 a little bit more, but I pretty much stuck mostly with the 85 and I absolutely love it. If you're using light stands, make sure that you get some boom stands, because that means you can get the lights in different places. You can get them nice and high and shining down. That opens up a lot more creative possibilities for you, because if you just got it on a normal stand, you can only shine it directly at you or from behind. I've been waiting for this style of Batman for a long time. It was dark. The way it was filmed was just how I wanted it to be, and that's in my opinion. And it had like a horror film feel about it, and that's what I wanted to see, because Batman as a character and a storyline is a dark thing. What they've done with the cinematography has been very clever. I thought I'm gonna recreate some of the shots from the trailer and show you how it was done. So all the examples that I've used, the lighting is very similar. It's a very similar style. Usually either like a silhouette or some sort of backlight with maybe one or two more lights just to bring out a little bit of detail, but not too much. And as you can see, Batman always blends into the shadows, and then he's got some sort of rim light or detail light somewhere. And when it comes to the direction of the light, it's never facing Batman, it's never on him from the front. It's always either a rim light, a split light, or from behind. Now for this first example, it's during the car chase. I thought this looked really nice. I didn't do it in the car, I just did it over here, literally over here in this room. So what I did was I set up the Amaran P60C light, and I set it to like a yellowy orange to emulate the street lights, and that's backlighting me, and it also provides this little rim light just on the side of the mask and also on the nose. And then as you can see in the original, there's a little bit of warmth. I don't know if it's coming from a flame outside of the car or something like that, so I just used the tube light and set it to like an orangey red and put it about 2 feet away from me, and as you can see, that's just lighting up that side of my face. And then there's one more light that I used, which was the Amaran P60X just above. So as you can see, there's just a tiny bit of light. I think I had that on about 1%, and it's just giving a little bit of detail to the mask. Now, one problem I had with this was the mask is slightly too big, so my eyes are a little bit set back in the mask, so it created more shadows than there is in the original one. So it was difficult to light my eyes and get my eyes to pop out. Not physically pop out, but be able to be seen. So I thought, right, I'll put that light in front of me, but then what happened is it lit my face too much and it's not as dark as I wanted it to be. So I think the problem there wasn't so much the lighting, it was more the mask. So I think the way I originally lit it was how it would have been done, or something similar at least, and the eyes would have stood out a little bit more. The other side of me, over my right shoulder, that is darkness. So there's no contrast there, it just blends into the shadows as I mentioned earlier. So in this next shot, it's filmed in a prison where Batman is visiting the Riddler. And as you can see, there's glass in between them. They're speaking through the glass and it's got sort of this checkered thing going on, which looks really good. Now, I didn't have access to that, but I do have French doors in the dining room to the conservatory, so I thought I'd shoot through that. But as you can see, you couldn't really tell. You can't tell it's shot through a window. I went through all that effort, tried to get rid of all the reflections of the camera and everything, and you can't even tell I'm shooting through glass. So next time what I do is maybe put some texture on the glass, or, you know, steam it up a little bit and put some handprints on, and that would make it a little bit more obvious that was filming through glass. Now this was a tricky lighting setup. I'm only using 2 lights. The first one is in the background, and that's kind of meant to be a light in a hallway behind the prison door, and that light is just shining through. But I don't have a door there, so I just set up a black backdrop at the end of that room. Then in front of it I put the Amaran P60C facing down on the boom stand. Then I made this sort of prison cell bar thing out of cinefoil and just hung it off the light. So as you can see, because it's out of focus, it actually looks like prison bars in the background. I think I'm really happy with that. And then the only other light is the tube light above. But the mistake I made was I put it on my side of the glass. I think I had that on about 1% because I didn't want it to light me too much. I'm happy with the light on me, but you can't really see the shoulder that much. So what I would have done better next time is put it on the other side of the glass to light the Riddler's shoulder, and then the light would have bounced off him. Also put a reflection into the window, so you'd have definitely known there was some glass in between us, and also bounced some light onto me as well and lit me up a little bit more. So then, very similar rules apply to the outdoor shots in the Batman film. It's still very dark, it looks very gloomy, it's not all bright, it's not well lit. In this original shot, we're filming at Batman from the shadow side, or from the dark side. But, as you can see on my first attempt, there was a little bit too much light coming onto that side of my face, or the mask. Everything else though I was really happy with, but I just wanted to get a little bit more closer to the original image. What I needed to do was get some negative fill. Now I didn't have anybody with me, so what I did was I just stood closer to a wall that casted a bit more shadow on me, and I got a lot closer to the original image. Then the other thing was I didn't have a Catwoman, so I just pulled a potted plant into the frame to make it look like there was something there that I was talking to. But I filmed this at Blue Hour, I think it was about 6:30 in the evening. I used a variable ND filter, I think it was only about 2 stops of ND because I didn't want it to be too dark. But it's a nice, even, soft light. There's no harsh shadows. It's just exactly how I wanted it to look, really, and it's nice and easy to use. I didn't use any equipment. If I didn't have a wall there, then I could have just used a bounce or a negative fill of something and just put it on a stand. But no other equipment other than my camera whatsoever. So I'm really happy with that. You can get great shots just by choosing the time of day that you film. So this shot was a really interesting one. As you can see, there's only 2 light sources, but it was very tricky to get right. Initially, this was what I had. I had the Amaran P60X on a boom stand above me, and it was pointing down right behind me, as far behind me as I could. As you can see, the light still comes quite far around my head, but I wanted it to hit Will's face and illuminate his face a little bit. But that light was a little bit too harsh for my liking on the mask, and it was a little bit too bright. This light is quite harsh, you can see on my head, but what we want is a nice softer light, and what you'd normally do is use this. Now look how soft it is on my head. We can make this happen. We can make this happen.
I mean,
we can. You didn't have anything else to do today, did you, Willy Boy?
No, that Sammy.
And that definitely softened things up a bit and it looks a lot more film-like. I'm so happy with that. And then the only other light I used was the mini tube light on a stand, just to pick out a little bit of detail on this side of my mask. But the problem with that was it was giving Will a rim light on this side, and we didn't want that. We wanted it to blend into the shadows. So what I had to do was block that off using some cinefoil. Really easy to do. You just literally tear a bit off and stick it on. I've got a full video about cinefoil here. It's super handy. If I didn't have that, we wouldn't have got that shot to look how it did. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the colours that I've used here. I wanted to emulate a normal bulb that you would have in a house or something like that. So it's kind of got a warm colour to it. But then with this light, I wanted it to be as if we were stood in front of the window and the moonlight is coming through. So as you can see, I've got two different colour temperatures there. I've got the warm light and the cool light. And what that does, is having those contrasting colours there, it makes it look a lot more natural and that you're not just stood in front of studio lights.
Sorry if I spat. So sorry. I tried.
You had it going.
We were both going like this.
So this is kind of the first time I've ever used lighting in this way, and I did come across a few struggles, if I'm honest, and I want to share those with you because I want to give you some tips to think about if you ever do anything like this. What I found the hardest was having a very limited space. I filmed it all in my mum and dad's house. The rooms are quite small, so you don't have a lot of room to work with, and what was happening was if I had the light too bright, it would bounce off all the walls and light would be everywhere where I didn't want it to be. So it was giving me the wrong look. But when I turned the lights down, it looked great on the monitor, but then it was quite dark when I'm editing. So the contrast ratios of the lights were a little bit off. Now that's a whole other video. I'm going to talk about that in another video because I'm going to analyse what I've done and try and make it better next time and show you the differences. And also tell you how to expose to get the best contrast ratios before you start filming, unlike what I did. So that was very difficult. If you've got the space, then you can use things like negative fills and bouncers and all that sort of stuff. But if you haven't, then you might be stuck. And that's the difference between these big budget films and somebody doing it at home on a budget. But I think I got fairly close and I'm very happy with how they turned out. Going forward, I just want to have that little bit of extra control over the colours and the contrast when I'm grading it afterwards. And then I found the exposure quite tricky because when you've got a key light like this, it's very easy to set the right exposure because I'm the subject right now and I can just make sure that I'm perfectly exposed and the background is a little bit less exposed so that I pop out from the background. But when you're filming something like the Batman and you're lighting it in that way, all you've got to go on is like a tiny little bit of rim light. And then how do you know when your shadows are exposed properly? And that's when false colour comes in and your contrast ratios and stuff like that. Again, a whole other topic for another video. But what I found helpful was having a reference. I chose specific shots from the trailer, my favourite ones, and I had that next to me at all times so I could refer back to those images and see where the light was coming from and see where things were positioned in the frame, and that definitely helps. So whatever project you're doing, if you've got a lot of reference material, use it because that'll help you get closer to the look and the feel that you're going for. I could talk all day about this film and the techniques used and what I did to get these shots, but I just kind of wanted to focus on the lighting in this video. But if you want to know about the colour grading or anything else, let me know in the comments below and I can work on that video for you because I've got loads of examples to share. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, have a great week and I will see you in the next one.